today, Hoops and Homers podcast. I'm your host, Derek. With me is your other host, Josh, and we are here to bring you all things Lakers, Clippers, Dodgers, and Angels. We are excited to talk some sports. Josh, what are we talking about today?
And today for episode 7, Derek, we're mixing it up a little bit. We're going to be talking about some greatness today. We saw two great milestones that just happened. Trout, at the age of 28, just hit his 300th home run. Kershaw just got his 2,500th strikeout recently.
Last week,
Two incredible careers.
Yeah.
And we're just going to be talking about it today.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start us off talking about Trout. And CC Trout right now, Derek, has 300 home runs. He's batting .305 throughout his career, has an OPS over 1,000. I personally think he's going to hit more than 600 past that mark. What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to look at his numbers each year.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like he's been getting better each year. Last year, he hit 45 home runs, and he didn't even play a ton of games, only 130 games. So, especially in this day and age where homers are so prevalent, I think he will get to 600. I've heard some people ask if he's going to get to 700. I don't think he'll get to 700, but I do think we'll definitely be between 600 and 700.
See, I was playing with that thought beforehand, actually, because he's at – if we had a full season this year, historically he's a player that doesn't really get hurt. He's missed – in these past 3 years, he's missed over 20 games each of the 3 seasons. But then before that, he's missed at most 3 to 5 games every single year.
Yeah.
So he's known for staying healthy. The past season, he hit 45 home runs. He has the major league lead right now of 15.
I think he hit a 16th tonight.
I think so too.
I saw that.
Looking into that, I mean, he's kind of robbed this season as you're kind of seeing his power numbers take over now.
Yeah.
With the consequence being his strikeout to walk ratio. But, I mean, this would be another 50 home run season, in my opinion, to put him over that mark. I think he's going to hit 20 for this year. So he'd finish around 305. If you think about it, in the next 7 years, if he hits 40 home runs each of those next 7 years, I don't really see his power falling off more so than I'd see his bat speed.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think his power numbers are still going to be there.
So
and he has great plate discipline too.
Yeah. He recently just signed his massive extension. So he is under contract until 2030, which is
the next decade.
About 9 or 10 more years. Yeah, 10 more seasons after this. So, it is tough because to get to 600, he needs to hit 30 a year until he's 38. So that's a lot. I mean, I think he'll do it because he'll probably have a couple of 40s at the beginning of that. But, man, it just shows you how impressive it is to get to 700. Obviously, the guys that did it are mostly steroid guys, but you got to be great for so long.
And so to consistently hit that many home runs, I think losing a season like this where you're only playing 60 games instead of 162, that hurts his case a lot. But anyways, looking at his walks too, he's had 827 walks so far in his career. And if you go on Baseball Reference, he's actually ranked around players his age. You're seeing guys that are played 16, 17 seasons. And I think he keeps his pace up. If he doubles his walks, he'd finish top 10 in walks.
Yeah.
In all baseball.
And I mean, he does everything so well. Hits for power, gets on base. I think he used to be a huge speed threat, still can steal you a base if you need it.
Yeah, and you've seen steals kind of go down as years progress, especially since Trout got hurt.
Probably smart, though.
Yeah,
make sure he doesn't hurt himself.
It'll be fun to see those stats, too, become a 400 guy. But right now he's at 200 steals. And then another thing to point out is that with Trout's WAR, I think that's kind of the one thing that everyone talks about with Trout.
Yeah.
And what that encompasses that right now his WAR, according to Baseball Reference, is at 73.7. Every other guy around him, Zach Greinke's played 17 years. Rafael Palmeiro played 20 years. Larry Walker, 17 years, just got in the Hall of Fame. And the next closest guy, there's no guy near him that's only played 10 seasons and that has that many wins above replacement. So I'll be really interested to see with Trout how high up this leaderboard he goes. Because
Yeah,
to get to top 10, he needs 131 wins above replacement. He's at 73.7 right now. So I don't know if he's going to be producing 9 more seasons for the next 5 years, but
he could.
I mean, I haven't seen anything against it so far.
Yeah. 9 wars is pretty high. The defensive wars got to be there. The offensive wars got. I mean, he's just the base running helps. So we will have to see. But I mean, yeah, not really any signs of slowing down. I
Slowing
mean,
down.
he's still only 28,
Yeah.
29. So he's got, I mean, at least
Mhm.
maybe 4 or 5 years in his athletic prime, and I mean,
I mean,
it's
like,
just doesn't seem smart to bet against him right now.
yeah. And then I guess you could call this slowing down, Derek. Like his 2018 season, when he lost the MVP to Mookie Betts, his OPS was at a career high 1088.
Yeah.
Now it's dropped down to 1083. Now it's to 1045. So
I
like
mean,
big
those are
drop off, right?
still
Like
those are
those are still
still the
incredible numbers.
incredible seasons.
But then
Um,
you also notice that his slugging goes up from 2018 to 2020 to
yeah,
653 now.
yeah.
So
Do you think this is an interesting question for an
yeah.
Angels fan who watches, most games? I don't watch, obviously I'm a Dodger fan, so I'm watching all the
Mhm.
Dodger games. You're an Angel fan, you're watching most of the Angel games. Um, have we seen Mike Trout's best year?
I think we have.
I think we have. What year was that? Was that the year
Um,
that Mookie won
the
MVP
MVP,
over?
yeah. That was his
Yeah,
OPS was 1098. He only played 140 games, but his stats that year were ridiculous.
yeah.
He batted 312, had an OPS of 1088. Um, he had
122 walks. That's
it's
insane.
incredible. Yeah. And I think just as you see him get older now, like his strikeout to walk ratio that year was 122 to 124. So he's pretty
Wow.
much striking out every time he walks, which is
Yeah,
great. But now it's
incredible.
kind of dropping off, especially this year, which
Yeah.
is a little bit concerning.
Yeah, that's a little concerning, but you know, um, he's had years like that in the past. In 2015, he struck out a lot more than he walked. So, and
Yeah.
same with 2014. So maybe if
Mhm.
they can get him a little more lineup protection, if I know and analytics
I mean,
they don't
yeah.
really like that, but if Otani can start hitting again, you get Rendon to bat right behind him. Maybe they his he doesn't strike out quite as much. But
But
yeah,
I
we'll
think
definitely
it's
have to see about
actually,
that.
yeah, I think it's hurt him a lot just watching the games this year. Anthony Rendon is leading the league right now in on base percentage, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah,
or he's top in the AL at least.
yeah,
And he's getting walked a lot. Like at the beginning of the season, he still had a batting average in the 100s and had an on base of over 400 because now it's like, what are you going to do? You can't walk just walk Trout to get to Otani or Justin Upton. Like you're going to have to face one of the two.
yeah,
And I think now as pitchers are being forced to pitch to him more, you might see that dip off a little bit. So I think the strikeouts are going to go up more, but at the same time, he's going to get more pitches to hit, which would suggest give you a good reason for why his home run numbers are also going to be going up.
yeah.
So I could
Another
definitely see him
interesting
hitting 50 in the future, without a doubt.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, especially with how home runs are going in the league right now.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is because he walks so much, he's not really um, a lock for 3,000 hits. He's got 1,367 so far.
Yeah.
Um, but that's so interesting because, he's walked, more than he has more than like, I mean, he's just walked a lot. He's gotten on base a lot. And because guys are too
827
afraid
walks.
to throw, they're too afraid to throw him strikes. So I wonder if he will get to. I mean, he's still got so much time. I think losing this year hurts him a lot in some of these statistical
Mhm.
numbers. Losing his age 28 season to, I mean, he's still playing MVP level baseball,
Mhm.
whether he wins it or Rendon or Nelson Cruz or Shane Bieber this year. But he's still one of the best players in the league, and um, I don't know. We'll see, it's just
Yeah.
going to be fun to keep an eye on,
Mhm.
see how.
I think, yeah. I mean, I guess the beautiful thing with Trout is that there's no specific statistical category that you point to, and you're like, okay, like in Ichiro that's like hits, or Barry Bonds, or it's like just home runs and walks,
Yeah,
right? There's like every single stat he has a chance to be at the top of the league in.
yeah,
So it's like his hits right now at 1367. I don't really see that getting much higher than 2,500 when it's all said and done. I think that's like the low, but I really don't see him getting to 3,000.
I think he'll get higher than 2,500
That's like a baseline. I think
in 10 more years.
2,600.
Yeah, yeah. I
Because
mean, yeah, I think he'll get close to 3,000 in the 280s, 2,800s or 2,900s.
yeah, I mean,
Because, I mean, he's got 10 more years, so if he averages, uh, like, he only needs to average like 150 a year. So we'll have to see
mhm.
for
I mean, but
sure.
like you look at his last 2 years, his MVP years, he had 147 hits, 137 hits,
Yeah,
and he really hasn't hit over 150 hits. And when he hit 170, pretty much, I guess the young rookie prime Trout, whatever you want to call it, from 2012 to 2016, Derek, he had over 170 hits,
that's
and his
crazy.
average was in the 320s.
Yeah,
But again, as you see him getting older, you're seeing his power numbers go up and his average is dropping. He won the MVP with 291. He's batting 293 this year. Um, and so you're kind of seeing that shift from like a speed hit guy to a more power slugging type of
yeah,
player. I mean, he's still ridiculously good. His offensive WAR is at 2 already this year.
yeah,
He's going to be in the MVP consideration for sure. He'd be an All-Star again this year if the All-Star game
absolutely.
existed.
Yeah.
So I guess another thing like we can talk about, Derek, is how many All-Star appearances do you think he's going to make? Or do you think there's going to be a
Huh.
year in the future where he will not make the team?
Interesting. So far he has 8 All-Star appearances and 3 MVPs. So he's got about 10 more years. I mean, I think you'd say for sure he'll get 5 more,
Mm-hmm.
probably 6 or 7 more. So he'll end up with 14 or 15 All-Star games and maybe 1 or 2 or 3 more MVPs. I mean, it's hard to bet against him.
Mm-hmm.
He's in this last. I mean, for the last 7 years, he's had 1 year out of the top 2 in MVP, and
And
he was 4th in his down year.
because he only played 114 games too.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how many he'll get to. I'm a little bummed that the MLB. I think they should name an All-Star team at the end of the season, like
I
they do in
know,
the NBA, like an
like
All
an all
NBA
first
team.
team. Yeah.
Yeah, and just name 30 guys from each league. I just think the more awards, the better. It's fun for the fans. It's fun for the players. Like in this year, that just has kind of sucked in a lot of ways. Like just name an all-star team. I feel like that's a fun thing to do. I hope they would change that at the end and do that. Maybe have the players or the fans vote. But yeah, I think he'll get up to 13, 14, 15 career all-star games. So yeah, like we were saying, I think it'd be really interesting and really cool for the MLB to name an all-star team, even if there's no all-star game this year, just because it's fun and it could recognize some players for having really good 60-game stretches. If the players vote on it or the fans, I think it would be really cool to give an opportunity for guys to reach an all-star game this year, even if there's not an actual game, just to have them be delineated as all-stars like the NBA does an all NBA team at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. It's actually funny you say that because I wish the MLB put more, I guess, of an impact, like we talk about Gold Gloves, but like just an overall all MLB team.
Uh-huh.
I just think
Yeah.
that should hold more value than All Stars. Like I like the All Star game, don't get me wrong, but just to see like after 60 something games, you tend to get guys that get on hot streaks on
Yeah.
the team versus guys that over the course of the season made a deep impact. And I feel like sometimes some of those seasons get lost in history just because they didn't receive proper recognition for that year. But that's for a different podcast at the time. But I think
Yeah.
now we should go over to Clayton Kershaw, the
And we'll
man,
make we'll make
the
our way
myth.
up the 5 freeway into LA.
I see
And
what you're doing.
yeah, like we were talking about before we started recording, it's just pretty crazy how spoiled we are in LA. Over the last 10 years, the Dodgers have had the best pitcher in the game for those 10
Mhm.
years. The Angels have had the best hitter in the game, Mike Trout. I mean, LA is like, I mean, these two stars, they're just so much better than
It's
the rest of the
ridiculous. Yeah,
players. It's really
it's
ridiculous.
not even close.
I know. So if you're looking at Clayton Kershaw, who is a little further along in his MLB career than Trout, he's 32. But this year, he's still putting up numbers pretty close to his best numbers of his career. And
Mhm.
he just reached 2,500 strikeouts, a nice career milestone. And so one question we were talking about is, do we think he's going to reach 3,000 strikeouts? And I just did some of the math, and I'll tell you what I found out. I believe that he will pretty easily make 3,000 strikeouts. And I think he might be the last pitcher to ever get 3,000 strikeouts.
The last pitcher ever?
Because of how the game is being played now, where guys don't make 32 starts a year and don't pitch 8 innings, Kershaw and Verlander and Scherzer, I think those are the last of the guys that are going to do it, because unless the game changes very, very differently, I don't think a lot of guys are going to reach it. So if you're looking at Clayton Kershaw, he's got one more season under his current contract. And so I mean, he's still only 32. A lot of people think he's a lot older than he is, but I'm predicting, if he plays 3 more seasons after his contract runs out, so 4 more seasons total, he needs to get 492 strikeouts in that span. So the math I did was, if he makes 103 more starts, which is basically 25 per year, and he averages about 5 innings per start, which is frankly pretty low. I think that would be about 515 more career innings pitched. So that means he would need less than a strikeout an inning, only about 8.6 strikeouts per 9 over that span to get to 3,000. And, so far in his career, he's averaged 9.7 strikeouts per 9. And the last 2 years, he's been 9.5 and 9.7. So his strikeouts aren't slowing down. As we see, league-wide strikeouts are up every single year. So if he averages, and all those numbers that I said are probably pretty low, he could, that would only take him till he's about 35 or 36. So if he pitches till he's 38, then it's like a lock for sure. And, health is always a concern as guys are getting older. Kershaw's had some back injuries in the past, but I actually think my take is that this season has helped Kershaw's career lengthen, because in the past couple of seasons before this one, he went to the World Series both years, so he had a short off season. Last season, the Dodgers get bounced pretty early in the playoffs, and then he gets a couple extra months because of the pandemic. So his arm, he came into this season super healthy, and it's shown with his average fastball velocity making the biggest leap that a pitcher has made since they've started tracking. He's gone up by 1.5 miles on his average fastball velocity. So I think that it's, barring injury, which, we always hope against for any player, I think it's pretty much a lock that he hits 3,000. 3,000 strikeouts.
I mean, you had a very well put together argument for that, but I'm just looking at Kershaw's numbers, and they are ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy to go to Kershaw's, 2014 season, but I'm looking at Kershaw's 2016 season right now.
Yeah.
That is the stuff of legends.
Dude, that was
I am so upset that he didn't get to finish that season fully. He only had 149 innings, but his strikeout to walk ratio was 15.6 over the course of 149 innings, an ERA plus of 2.37.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, that is a season that probably could have been one of the best pitching seasons of all time. A whip of .725 over the course of 149 innings. That's a reliever pitches that in 60 innings, he's considered great. That is not something you see from a starting pitcher.
Yeah, this was an insane season. I have very vivid memories of this season, being, I think, a senior in high school, a junior in high school. And this was the first season Dave Roberts came to the team. And I remember a stat that Dave Roberts, in his first 5 starts, he never went to the mound to visit Kershaw once. It was just like Kershaw, I think it was
just take a nap while
3 shutouts in the first 5 or 6 starts of that year. And he was just it was insane, the stuff he was doing. Unfortunately, that led to a back injury that has plagued him his last couple of years. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people look at Kershaw and, talk about this decline, but still, I mean, an ERA title in 2017, a 2.73 and a 3.03 in 2018 and 19, which are
1.98
incredible numbers compared to league averages. And then, this year at a 1.98 through his first 7 starts. And he's been striking out guys, 9.7 guys. That's his career average strikeout guys. His homers are down from last year. His walks are way down. And I mean, if you look at his page, there's a lot of bold and a lot of italicized stuff, meaning that he is, He's the best. I mean,
Special.
if you look at some of the numbers I looked up, was he's got 69 career WAR exactly. So that's crazy among players. He's got the in winning percentage, which I know wins and stuff don't
Oh, I was about
matter
to mention
like
that
they
too,
used
Derek.
to. What?
60. His winning percentage. I was about to mention that too, but go ahead.
Yeah, his career winning percentage is 699, 174 and 75, which is number one in active pitchers and number three of all time, including pitchers that pitched in like 1800s. Like, there's the only guys above him are guys that pitched, 100 years ago. So, you can say whether that counts or not, but he's still up above that greats. And his career ERA is 2.43. That's insane. That's a
I
Cy
think
Young season.
what's more insane about the ERA is that if in this season he's able to hold his ERA below 2,
Yeah.
he would have had 4 seasons in the past decade below 2. That
Yeah.
is absurd in this era of baseball where the league average ERA is like a 4.5 now. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just something you don't see. And not from a reliever, just like a guy that's pitching in the same division every single year,
Especially
200 plus innings,
looking at the innings he has on his arm. I mean, he's been in the
2,300
playoffs
innings. Yeah.
every year. They've won 7 straight division titles. They're, well on their way to an 8th. They've been in the playoffs every year for the last 7 years. He's pitched, in his prime, he was pitching well over 200 innings in a time, nowadays pitchers don't do that so much anymore. So, I think he's one of the last of the pitchers that are going to end up with these crazy career numbers, just because in this day and age, we know that it's dangerous to allow young arms to pitch as much as they used to. And, it's not going to I don't think it's going to happen that young pitchers aren't going to come up and be allowed to throw 220, 236 innings, that Kershaw.
Especially if they're throwing, like 95 plus.
Yeah, we've just seen so many more arm injuries. But to do what he's done basically since 2008, his rookie year, to 2020, it's incredible. And, he was showing some signs of slowing down, but this year he's right back to his ways. He's definitely a top 3 pitcher in the National League right now. Could be on his way to another Cy Young, given a couple more good starts at the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot that you can say that isn't incredible about Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah. And I mean, you just look at the consistency over the years. I think that really is what defines greatness, is that, I mean, not everybody, but there are a certain amount of players that are capable of going off for a season.
Right.
But to do it over the course of 10, 11, 12 years, like you've seen with Kershaw and Trout. I know Trout's only played 10 years thus far, but like that's just something that really defines your legacy.
Yeah, and you know what?
As a baseball player.
I think that brings up a really good point that we can kind of talk about to end this on, is Clayton Kershaw and Mike Trout. The thing that makes them great is their consistency. Like, Clayton Kershaw wasn't the best pitcher in baseball every single year. Mike Trout wasn't the best player in baseball every single year. There was a year where Mookie Betts was better, a year where Josh Donaldson was better. For Clayton Kershaw,
that was
been a couple years
yeah.
where Arrieta and Greinke were better. But it's just that, like,
that
for every year of their career, they're top 3. There's no year where they have a down year and they're like the 12th best player. The worst years, they're up there.
And man, I'm just looking at Kershaw's like prime years, like his prime years from 2013 to 2016.
Yeah.
Like that's stupid. That's not fair.
Yeah, and just like Trout, you can make the argument that he was robbed of some Cy Youngs in there. 2015, a 2.13 ERA, 300 strikeouts, the first 300 strikeout season in like 20 years, and he lost it to Jake Arrieta, one of the weaker Cy Youngs ever. And just like
he
Trout,
placed third behind Greinke too, if I remember correctly.
Greinke was having a great year. That season, that's a good future podcast. That's a good future podcast, is the 2015 Cy Young race, because that was an interesting one. But
like, I mean, you look at these players and the numbers they're putting up. I mean, you have an easy argument. There's no doubt that, I mean, there's other great pitchers in this day and age, like Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, Zach Greinke's had a great career.
Yeah.
DeGrom. I think you see Garrett Cole up and coming now, but no one's numbers over a course of time like this match Kershaw's.
Yeah, and
Kershaw's
still going.
there's very few in history that would even come close to this.
Yeah.
And a lot of those guys, like we're talking about, Walter Johnson's in the 1920s.
Yeah. Even
Sandy
earlier.
Koufax is earlier too.
Yeah.
I think maybe Pedro Martinez is about the only guy who's putting up numbers that disgusting.
I mean, yeah,
But
there's going to
even
be a
then,
serious conversation about if Clayton Kershaw is the greatest of all time. And we can talk about his postseason success, and that's probably another, or lack thereof. That's probably a conversation for another podcast. But I think he gets, if anything, I think he gets a little overlooked because of, how consistently great he's been. It kind of becomes boring. You just expect him to do it, whereas guys come and go. We've had so many, DeGrom's been great, but he's only done it for 2 or 3 seasons, and Scherzer's 36 and Kershaw's still 32 and still plugging along. So,
and again,
we've
you see like guys like DeGrom take off a little bit, or like Scherzer and DeGrom take off a little bit later in their career, but like Kershaw comes onto the scene and it's just bang.
21 years old. Yeah.
Trout, bang. And so, yeah, I think we can close this up kind of now, but we just want to have a little podcast talking about these two greats.
Yeah.
Michael Trout, Clayton Kershaw. They both hit very respectable marks in their career, especially at the ages that they're at. I know it has a lot of fans, people keeping stat watches. And it should be fun to see where they end up later in their careers.
Absolutely. But until then, I'm sure we'll keep watching this. This has been the LA Hoops and Homers podcast. Tune in next time. We still got some NBA playoffs going on. We're going to be talking about. Baseball's playoffs are coming up in a couple of weeks. We got as much sports as ever to talk about. So check us out on Spotify and YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. And until then, we'll see you later.